Welcome to the Scented Path, where fragrance meets the senses and brings meaning to life's special moments. I'm Natalie, your guide on this journey through scent, self-reflection, and living beautifully. Each week, we'll explore how fragrance inspires balance, stirs memories, and elevates everyday life. Discover how each scent can transform not just your space, but your mood and your path forward. So let's walk this journey one scent at a time. This is the Scented Path. There's a quiet tax you pay every time you try to fit in. It starts small. You lower your tone in a meeting so no one calls you too much. You let the wrong joke slide because you don't want to be labeled sensitive. You nod along when your gut is screaming just to keep the peace. That's how it begins. A shaved edge here, a swallowed word there. It looks harmless on the surface, but over time, you start realizing you've been rehearsing a version of yourself that doesn't actually live here. I know because I've done it. Guilty. I've stayed at tables that drained me, thinking endurance was some kind of badge. I smiled through conversations I didn't believe in, just so the room wouldn't turn stiff. I clipped the weight of my presence so others wouldn't mislabel it. And in the moment, it felt like a smart move, the easy move. But the cost always comes due. Fitting in when you were built to stand isn't neutrality, it's erasure. Piece by piece, you start losing your own reflection. You walk away from the day not tired from the work you did, but more exhausted from the version of yourself you had to manage. It's the heaviness that lingers when you've been performing all day. Kind of tired that doesn't come from work, but from pretending. And the worst part? It fools you. You start thinking that being tolerated is the same as being respected. You confuse being accepted for being valued, but deep down, you feel the split. You know you're smaller than you should be. That's the story of fitting in. It's a slow, quiet undoing on your own. The longer you play the part, the harder it is to remember what you sounded like before the edits. This much is undeniable. One size never fits all. Not in luxury, not in presence, not in life. And the moment you stop pretending it does, you start to feel the weight lift. The first hit is burnt sugar. Sweetness pushed too far. Now bitter on the tongue. That's what pretending feels like. Easy at first, then sticky, coating everything with an aftertaste you can't ignore. Then comes musk. Thick, animalic, unmistakable. Musk has presence, but when it lingers too long, it turns suffocating. That's the silence you swallow, the conversations you stay in even when your whole body wants out. Musk is the weight of staying small, in places that demand your bigness. After that, clove. Clove shows itself. Spicy, sharp, cutting. That's the note that slips through when you've bent too far. Irritation spilling out because you refuse to let honesty breathe. And finally, oud. We've talked about oud before. Resinous, dark, unforgettable. It doesn't disappear when the flame goes out. It roots itself in the air, in your clothes, in the room long after you leave. That's the truth of pressing yourself into a mode that doesn't fit. The residue clings even when you're trying to move on. But at the very end, there's marshmallow. Light, airy, softly sweet. It doesn't erase the weight of the other notes, but it rounds them, ties them together. It makes the whole profile impossible to duplicate. That's the part that only belongs to you, the detail no one else can carry, the reminder that even in the heaviness, there's still a signature sweetness that refuses to be lost. Burnt sugar, musk, clove, oud, marshmallow. Together, they don't blend into something generic. They collide, soften, demand, and glow. And in the end, they smell like no one else but you. The thing about trimming yourself for the sake of acceptance is that it doesn't feel dangerous in the moment. It feels practical, honestly. You tell yourself you're just smoothing over a little rough patch, just keeping things easy, just reading the room. However, every time you do it, you teach yourself a lesson. Not the one you think, though. You teach yourself that your real response isn't welcome. You teach your body that silence is safer than honesty. You teach your spirit that being half visible is better than being whole and questioned. And eventually, those lessons turn into habits. You start noticing it in the way you second guess yourself before speaking, and how you laugh along at something you don't actually find funny, and how you sit through dinners, jobs, relationships where the best thing you can say about them is that they're fine. Every time you force yourself into the wrong place, you pay for it later. Not in hours lost, but in the way your own reflexes start to question you. And it shows up everywhere. In your work, where you spend more time perfecting the polish than naming the truth. In your relationships, where you hold back just enough to be likable, but never enough to be seen. In your body, where the exhaustion isn't from effort, but from holding yourself back all day. It's not neutral. It leaves a mark. After a while, you can't tell if you're making choices for yourself or if you've gotten really good at performing the version of you that everyone else wanted. It's not one moment that breaks you, it's the repetition. Swallowing enough times and disappearing starts to feel like the default. Presence has weight. And when you keep cutting yours down, the world doesn't get easier, it just gets emptier. You get emptier. You were built with your own scent profile, your own contours, your own rhythm. And the more you press yourself into someone else's outline, the less of you there is to carry. It matters to pause and take inventory, to ask, where am I showing up whole? Where am I exhausted? That's where the workbook keeps proving itself powerful. One listener told me she realized how her reflex was to apologize for everything, things that weren't even hers to carry. The workbook makes the patterns undeniable. And she said now she catches it. Now she saves her apologies for the moments that actually matter. This is what happens when you write it down. When you stop pretending and actually look at the pages, the patterns tell on you. They show you where your weight really lives. So this week, don't just survive the rooms that want you smaller. Track it. Name it. Notice the residue, that burnt sugar, the musk, the oud, and then circle the marshmallow too, the softness that belongs to only you. That's the real signature that no one can duplicate. You don't fit the mold because you weren't meant to. You were meant to set the standard. Thanks for joining me on the Scented Path. Remember, finding balance is a luxury we all deserve. And each breath is a chance to embrace harmony and grace. Until next time, breathe easy, live beautifully, and let every moment reflect your truest self. This is the Scented Path, where luxury meets balance.